Hello, my name is Michael Lambert, and today I want to talk a little bit about the state of the economy, and I want to talk also about the becoming more desperate by the day, efforts of the government to try and convince us that everything is fine, everything's going to be great. And I want to refer particularly to Jeremy Hunt's budget statement last week. Don't worry, I'm not going to start talking about taxation rates or anything like that, or fiscal drag and all the rest of it, but I just want to read some of the things that he said, which illustrate just how deluded they are, or just how stupid they think we must be. He did come up with one benefit, which he's really flogged, because he mentioned it right at the beginning of his speech. It was the first thing he mentioned, and he mentioned it again at the end in case we'd forgotten about it. And that huge benefit is that, as from the 1st of August, the duty on draft beer is going to be 11% less, 11 pence less than it was before. This is something we couldn't have done within the EU, apparently. So it is a significant benefit. I think the last time I bought a pint of beer in central London, it cost me £6.50. So that, for example, would only cost £6.39 after the 1st of August. So it's a great help, and that'll transform drinking, I would imagine. Now, they've got to a stage now where everybody can see everything's going wrong. Brexit's an absolute disaster. Now, we've blamed COVID, and we've blamed Putin, and we've blamed Ramonas, and we've blamed, just about everybody and his wife we've blamed. And now they've resorted to the last two people to blame, and that is categories to blame. That is the last Labour government. And he says in his speech, he says, 13 years ago, we inherited an economy that had crashed. So, I mean, that's one of the reasons why things are so difficult, because the way the Labour left the economy 13 years ago. And the other people to blame, of course, are the British people. Now, you hear a lot about the British people these days. It's because the British people voted for Brexit. The government, the politicians, they didn't want to do it. No, they wouldn't have done anything so stupid as Brexit. No, the British people is what they wanted. He refers to that in his speech. And bearing in mind right now, if you just look around, how desperate things are. You know, we're about to experience the worst fall in living standards since the war. It's 70 years. And we're paying the highest rates of taxes we paid for 70 years. We're now paying 37.7% of our income in tax. That means that in order to pay your taxes, you need to work from January the 1st until May the 18th before you start earning money you can keep yourself. That is just to pay taxes. 37.7%, worst ever. But no matter. He says this. He says, today we face the future with extraordinary potential. And then he goes on, the World Bank said that out of all big European countries, we are the best place to do business. He says global chief executives, he doesn't say which ones or who, no mention of that, but some global chief executives say that apart from America and China, we're the best country in the world to invest in. Investment, you see, all these executives want to invest here. And also, he mentions that London has just pipped New York. You see, you've got to find things where we're better at. We've just pipped New York and 53 other global cities to be the best place in the world for female entrepreneurs. That's good, isn't it? Now, on this question of investment and how we're such an attractive place to invest, and how all these people, including all these global chief executives, think that's where the UK is where we should invest. You might have seen last week there was a firm called BYD, it's a Chinese firm. It's the biggest manufacturer of hybrid cars in the world. And they plan to set up in Europe a factory making 800,000 cars a year. And they've looked all over as to where they should set up a factory. Now, I think it's fair to say that before Brexit, probably we'd have had a pretty good chance, given that we'd got Nissan and all the rest of it here in those days. But of course, our car industry is much diminished now. Anyway, they were looking in Germany, France, Spain, Poland, and Hungary. And the chief executive, the European president, rather, of this company, BYD, said, as an investor, we want a country to be stable. To open a factory is a decision for decades. Without Brexit, maybe. But after Brexit, we don't understand what's happened. The UK doesn't have a very good solution, said this guy. He's called Michael Shue. Even on the long list, we didn't even consider the UK. Elon Musk, in 2019, when he was looking to set up a gigafactory here, he said the UK's decision to leave the EU made it much too risky. So those are two very, very major companies that have decided not to invest here. And you have to say to yourself, why would anybody come and invest here if they want to serve the European market? You've got an option, really, haven't you? You've got two options. One option is you set up a factory in Europe and you've got 26 other countries you can supply without any frontiers, any borders, any documents, all the rest of it. Very, very easy. And then you've got one offshore island market not far away with 60 million people, absolute pain in the arse to deal with, but you'll deal with them anyway because it's a good market. Or alternatively, you could set up in the UK, whereby to supply the other 27 countries, every time you export a car, you've got endless additional documentation, and every time you want to import components, you've got further documentation and delays because of delays at the frontier with documentation. So in other words, it would be an absolute pain in the arse. Nobody is going to come here and invest. Nobody. Now we've got a firm in this country called ARM. It belongs to a Japanese company called SoftBank. It's the jewel in the crown of the UK's high-tech industry. It produces chips, microchips, which appear in just about every telephone in the world. Hugely successful company, worth 32 billion, and they've decided to go public. They're going to launch on the stock exchange, but not on the London Stock Exchange. They're going to launch in New York. The same week as it happened, there's another firm. It's part Irish. It's called CRH, and they're worth 30 billion. And they're also going to launch. They're going to launch on the stock market. They're going to launch also in New York. The comment from the Financial Times was, fears for the future of the London stock market are mounting after SoftBank, that's ARM, and the world's largest building materials group, CRH, shunned the city in favour of New York. Then there's that British Volt, isn't it? That's absolute chaos. That was a firm that was set up to make car batteries up in the northeast of England. I think they got investments of about 800 million. In the end, they went bust. I think the firm was sold in the end for about 32 million to an Australian company. And they're going to take it over and they're going to build it and they're going to make factories, but they're not making car batteries. No, they're making storage batteries. So in the end, we'll have just one Chinese-owned factory making car batteries, which is going to be, which is already next to Nissan and in Sunderland, and that looks very much like the end of the British car industry. And yet he's still going on and on and on about human investment and what an attractive country we are. He was talking only a few weeks ago about how we were going to be Silicon Valley, how there was no reason why we shouldn't have our own Amazon or Apple or Microsoft or Facebook, because people are going to come here, aren't they? And the latest, guys, you see, this is just, what gets me is it's just such an insult to our intelligence to talk such utter rubbish when the evidence is so clearly that we're doing so badly that the economy is collapsing post-Brexit. This is what he has to say here. Today I announce that we will deliver 12 new investment zones, 12 potential Canary Wharfs. Okay, so you've got your Silicon Valley to think about, and now we're going to have Canary Wharfs. Let me tell you a bit about Canary Wharf. Canary Wharf was, they started building it about 40 years ago, but anyway, it's in the East End of London, Docklands. And it's an area, it's a financial centre with, 40, 50 massive, very, very plush skyscrapers, which is, the world financial centre in many ways for many years. It's been extremely successful and so on, but of course now a lot of people are leaving, and I think we're 7,500 people already gone to Europe, and there's going to be more drift to Europe as time goes by, as we lose more and more influence in financial markets. But nonetheless, it is an area with 16 million square feet of space. It's worth about £8 billion, and it employs 120,000 people. At the moment, because of what's happened post-Brexit, and I suppose people to a certain extent are working from home and so on, there's something like 15% occupancy vacancy rates. So people are already moving out of there. But nonetheless, Jeremy, just to appease everybody, to keep everybody happy in all the other regions, he's identified 12 places throughout the UK: West Midlands, Greater Manchester, the North East, South Yorkshire, West Yorkshire, East Midlands, Teessides, and Liverpool, plus one or more in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. In all those places, there's 12 places there, he's going to build Canary Wharfs. What for? What are people going to do in them? You can build these massive, massive skyscrapers of offices when people are working less and less in offices. It's just rubbish. It's just utter rubbish. But it is all to make us think, well, what a dynamic, fantastic, exciting country we are. Silicon Valley, Canary Wharf. And these areas, if they want to build, or these places, they want to build one of these Canary Wharfs, they can apply for a loan, a grant. And if they get a grant, it's be £80 million. Canary Wharf is worth 8 billion. So that's 1/1000th. They can get 1/10 of 1% of the money needed to build one of these Canary Wharfs from the government. And when they build it, it's going to be useless. One thing you do hear a lot about is whenever Sunak is asked benefits of Brexit, because there are so few of them, he'll say freeports. Now there is a freeport up in Teesside being built at the moment, and Private Eye have done a series of articles about this freeport. We could have had freeports when we were within the EU. We didn't have to leave the EU to have a freeport. The thing about freeports is that they're areas which are sort of fenced off, privately run areas, a few thousand acres, whatever, and they have a port, and stuff can come in without any duty, anything at all. And then when the stuff it comes into the area, it's worked on, maybe it's raw materials, it's made into finished products and so on. And then when it leaves the freeport, leaves the area, taxes and duties are paid. So really, it's a fantastic opportunity for smuggling, money laundering, for smuggling drugs and whatever. Because it's so difficult to control, and the controls are all done by private companies that run these areas. Now, as I say, Private Eye has been doing a very good series of articles. I really do recommend them about the Teesside Freeport. And there is a podcast. It's called Page 94, which is a Private Eye podcast in which their brilliant investigative journalist Richard Brooks describes what's happened up here. And what it seems, is that this whole Teesside Freeport has been handed over to two men who are kind of going to run it. They seem to be pals with the mayor up there, and they're building a port at the moment. They've got a £107 million loan to build this port, and then they'll run the port, and of course they get all the charges from the port, and then they'll have complete control of the area. Seems there are a lot of disused steelworks there, and they've gained millions and millions and millions of pounds from selling all the scrap metal and so on. And anyway, they're going to run this report, this Freeport. It seems very much like the PPE scandals. It's just a huge racket, with these guys going to get extremely rich out of this racket, and who knows what will come in through this Freeport. Incidentally, the son of one of these two men who are running this Freeport has just completed an 11-year sentence for drug dealing in the north of England. So 11 years is presumably quite a serious one. But he is involved. I think he's in charge of security in this Freeport. But that's our future. That's our future. That's why it's one of the things that we're told we could only do because we left the EU, when in fact we could have done it within the EU. And so, as I said earlier on, it's now time to start making excuses for Brexit, and you hear it quite a lot now. Senior politicians, you hear an expression, "the British people." This is something you're going to hear more and more and more and more. Whenever it comes up, it'll be the British people, the will of the British people, and he mentions it here. He says, "Brexit was a decision by the British people to change our economic model." Now, I don't remember when people in the street were being interviewed in Rochdale or Rotherham or in Bridport or wherever, where they were asked, "Why are you voting to leave the EU?" It seemed to me that the response was to take back control because we don't want to be bossed around by Brussels, or to stop immigrants coming here. But according to Jeremy Hunt, that wasn't the reason everybody voted for it. It was to change our economic model. He said our country decided to move from a model based on unlimited low-skill immigration to one based on high wages and high skills. I don't remember that high wages, high skills ever being mentioned when the referendum was taking place. I mean, it's perfectly clear. I mean, it's just so obvious. I mean, Jeremy Hunt is obviously a clever guy. I mean, it's absolutely obvious that unless you're completely, utterly stupid, Brexit is an absolute disaster. We are a basket case. We are the sick man of Europe already, and things are getting worse and worse. So we just look around, things are getting worse and worse. And they're going to go on getting worse. And as I've said many times before, until we decide to turn around and start to even apply to join the EU, which might take another 10 years, till we even start to apply to return, things are going to go on getting worse and worse. They're going to get much worse, much worse. Then he goes on about all these people not working. Over 7 million adults working age are not in work. Now, if you look at a graph, all the graphs of all the different countries, and you see how many people have not gone back to work post Brexit in different countries, the UK is just completely different from everybody else. We're the only country where a vast number of people have not gone back to work. It so happens that the 7 million people have not gone back to work. There's 7 million people on NHS waiting lists, and you have to wonder why it is that we have so many people waiting for medical treatment. Maybe it's something to do with diet. I don't know what it is, but having got rid of so many workers who came here from the EU, and all this thing with doctors now, and the one sort of scandalous part of the budget was this business about allowing people to have unlimited pension pots in order to keep doctors, and it's going to cost an absolute fortune. It probably won't make much difference anyway. I think doctors are just sick and tired of the chaos in the NHS, and they get a lot more money in the private sector, and they certainly get a lot more money and a lot better deal if they go off and work in Canada or Australia or many other countries where they can work. And so that's really it. And this is how he finishes up, how he summarises his budget. He says, we tackle the two biggest barriers to stop business growing. At least he recognises them. To stop the barriers that stop business growing: investment incentives and labour supply. Investment incentives, as I explained, no one's going to come and invest here. No one wants to invest in a country which is protected by an absolute wall of bureaucracy and inconvenience. Nobody's going to do that in their right minds. And labour supply. Well, labour supply is we don't want any foreigners here. We want to be like North Korea. We've managed to get rid of the Europeans, thank goodness. We don't want any other foreigners coming here. We're having to take these dreadful people from Hong Kong and Ukraine, and the sooner they go away, the better. But thank God there are no Europeans anymore, and we don't want any other foreigners coming here. We are going to train up our own people, train up our shortage of doctors, train them up some more. I don't know how long it takes to train a doctor, and all these other. We train up all these 7 million people who are doing nothing because they're waiting for an operation or whatever is happening. And then he says, to finish off, he says, for families feeling the pinch, this is what he's done. He's frozen the fuel duty. That's good, and he's capped the energy bills. We're still paying the highest price for electricity and gas than anywhere in Europe, I think, and. For parents, he's going to give them 30 hours of free childcare for the under fives. That seems a brilliant idea, but it's not going to happen until 2024, by which time they'll probably no longer be in government. It'll be the Labour Party that has to sort out how to finance that. And finally, beer duty's been cut by 11p. So that is the budget. As I said before, I think they think we're complete and utter idiots, and I think they're getting more and more desperate, and you're going to hear more and more and more about this is what the British people wanted. Well, no need to do this. We were just doing what the British people wanted, and it's really, really, really sickening. It's absolutely crazy, but there it is. So anyway, that's what I think about it. And if you've watched this far, thank you very much indeed. If you haven't already subscribed, I really would appreciate it. Oh, and just one last thing, I'm going to do a video about Boris Johnson during the week, since he's up before the Privileges Committee on Wednesday, and so I would like to do a summary of his career. So once again, thank you for watching, and until next time, bye for now.